Lily Garcia. Ms. Garcia is president of the National Education Association, the nation's largest labor union. Ms. Garcia began her career in education as a school lunch lady and now leads a professional association of 3 million educators. She is the first Latina to lead the NEA and one of the country's most influential Hispanic educators. Prior to assuming the top post, Ms. Garcia served 2 terms as NEA Vice President and Secretary-Treasurer. Thank you.
Buenos dias. I am Lily Eskelsen Garcia, and I have had a lot of positions in education. I did start as a lunch lady. I'm a really good lunch lady, too. A Head Start assistant, teacher's assistant, and a 6th grade teacher, where I taught in the suburbs of Salt Lake City, and I taught homeless children and hard-to-place foster children waiting for homes. I'm here today as president of the National Education Association, representing our 3 million members. And you've asked me to be brief, which is like asking me to be blonde, but I will get right to it and ask you to consider in your draft of the Democratic Platform for 2016 language, specific language that will clearly include and affirm that every single student deserves a comprehensive, well-rounded program that will meet the needs of the whole child and not just test and punish. Recognize and honor all the professionals who teach in that school, from the lunch ladies to the teachers to the administrators, that you support programs that we are developing even as we speak to end the school-to-prison pipeline that's devastating our minority students by criminalizing minor misbehavior, that you will support local public schools and community-based education, and oppose privatization of public schools and other schemes that undermine community-led solutions and democratic processes, and that you embrace the goal of debt-free public higher education. Give our kids the hope, especially our most vulnerable kids, the hope that graduation day will lead to college. And we also want you to support loan forgiveness programs for public service, and that would include educators as public service, and to refinance college loans. We've got an opportunity to make all of these things happen. We're very excited. And I was so honored to stand behind the President of the United States of America and watch him sign a law that put out of business No Child Left Untested and brought us into an era of every student succeeds. If we do what we need to do state by state now, we will start focusing on the resources, the services, and the supports that every student needs. We shift our focus to what matters most. As an educator, I wanted to inspire my students' curiosity, their imagination, the joy of learning. That's what I want. I need the tools and the time to do that. I need the collaboration of my colleagues to do that. We have to use standardized testing for the very limited purpose they were designed to be used for, and we have to look at problem-solving skills, critical thinking, the arts, PE, foreign languages. We urge you to stand with educators and our students and make sure that all students have the access and the opportunity to make their dreams come true. Mil gracias. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Tony?
Thank you so much for your comments. We've obviously spent decades as a country demonizing teachers, or at least one side of the political debate has been demonizing teachers. And so I really wanted to talk to you about how important quality teaching is to education. That's what we learn from looking at every other country that's actually really performing well. And what are the steps you recommend that we take to attract people to become teachers, to keep them as teachers, to ensure that they have what they need to improve along the way? Because we know quality teachers are central to this, and I have to say, I think it's so critical that a focus on teachers and education as part of all of that we do.
We just took a major survey at NEA of newly arrived teachers who had been in the business less than 10 years. So many of them feel that they made a mistake. That alarms us. They feel disrespected. They feel that they have talents and gifts and skills, and that both hands are tied behind their back in being creative professionals.
Yeah.
When you look at the countries that are doing so well on any level, they have an incredible institutional respect for educators, for those teachers. They recruit them well. They prepare them rigorously. They make it a career profession. They're not always the top paid professionals in society, but they are always the top respected professionals in society, and we need to do the same. One of the things we find out now is that our teaching ranks are becoming more and more, less and less diverse as our students the population becomes more and more diverse. We know that parents feel more welcome in a school community when they can see their community represented in the faculty and the staff. And we're having trouble, it goes back to that debt-free college. We're having trouble attracting people into such a low-paid, disrespected profession. And so something like scholarships and grants for talented people who want to be career teachers would go so far into having families saying, let's reconsider you going into education, making it that elite, respected profession.
Cerise?
Thank you. Just following up to that, as was indicated, teachers are, been demonized and outright attacked in the last decade. And you mentioned, and I'm so impressed with your resume of coming from, if you will, the bottom up, from the ground level to where you are now. Can you you talked about Head Start, and there's so much about, the preschool promise and Head Start. Can you maybe talk about what would be a bold platform statement that we could have that would take us from Head Start, avoiding that pipeline to prison, all the way through college, a bold statement that we can have as a party to say this is what we believe in. And I might add, public education, I'm a proud graduate of a public school system, and for so long it's gotten a bad branding that public education is not good. So can you maybe give us something that can be bold that we should include in our platform?
Oh, we would love to see something that says that children are lifelong learners from prenatally. We know that those early years are so crucial. When I taught the 3- and 4-year-olds in that Head Start program, I saw parents that delivered their kids to us saying, I might not be able to give my kids everything I want to give them at home, and I'm putting them in your care because I know that you're going to be able to give them something here that they'll be able to take through the rest of their lives. That Every Student Succeeds Act has a required dashboard that every state has to develop indicators of service and support to their students. Are the kids in this zip code getting what the kids in this zip code are getting? Why not put preschool on that? Why not put early childhood experiences and education on that? And to say, you have to describe how many of the students in this school have access to quality early childhood education. And we'll be able to see where those gaps are. It's one thing to look at a test score gap and then not deal with what led to that gap. That's what we want to talk about. So something that says early childhood education and well-rounded programs from preschool to graduate school is what we'd love to see.
I'll take 3 questions. Lee, Parker, and West.
Thank you very much. Following up on that, there was a recent report from the Government Accountability Office, the GAO. Some thought it was shocking. Some of us did not see it as so shocking. It raised concerns around the continued racial and economic segregation in our public schools and the impact that it has on students. At the same time, we see increasing concern about the rise of the school-to-prison pipeline. And so in addition to the early childhood education strategies, we need, in our platform, to really lay out, I think specifically, policies and strategies that address the whole issue of racial and economic segregation in our public schools.
And that is so vital. I think that is what will set this platform apart from the other party's platform. One of the I just left the White House at a briefing with Secretary Castro on housing. What was education doing, sitting at the table, talking about affordable housing and homelessness? Because as you talk about the whole child, you can't do that without talking about the whole community, without access and opportunity for those families to have what they need to serve the children in their own families. Those kids come to school with such social, emotional trauma in their lives when they don't have something like reliable housing, a living wage for those families. So we see that, and when you see the disparities so brightly defined by racial lines, you see which students have and which students don't have what they need. That public school should become the hub of communities. We're seeing more and more community schools, where social services, where faith-based organizations, where the Boys and Girls Club and the United Way organizations come together and they say, we are going to pull together a comprehensive program that will serve the families in this community. And one of the things with the housing is that you have to do something about segregating deep pockets of poverty, which are still, unfortunately, are pockets of high minority communities, and say, how do we make sure that in every neighborhood we have great diversity, that we have the mix of the community, where that new community can come to a public school and have children actually experience what America should be.
Ms. Parker?
Yes, President Garcia, I'm glad you brought out the communities and getting communities involved. I strongly believe that we need curriculum designed that incorporates our communities. In 6th grade, I was told that my tribe, the Snohomish tribe, no longer existed. We were wiped out in the 1800s, which I sat in class saying, wait a minute, I'm sitting here, you know, we're alive, and yet our whole K through 12 experience had maybe a week of Pacific Northwest history on my tribe, which is the Coast Salish tribe. But I know that's reflective throughout the United States, inappropriate history and curriculum that doesn't really relate to the students. So we want our students of color, our students from diverse backgrounds to come to school, but it doesn't include them in the curriculum. So I think we have a real issue here in the United States with true and accurate history. And so I know the state of Washington, Senator McCoy, who is also a Tulalip tribal member, worked on a bill and passed it this year to include Native American history into the curriculum. So I'm really hoping that we see that nationwide to start to reflect more of the diversity and the vast belief systems that we have here into the school system. So, you know, how can we better support kids in public schools through community action?
Well, and we can use voices like yours and voices from the parents and from our own members that represent those, my NEA members that represent those communities. One of the things that NEA is focused like a laser on is the cultural competency of our own professionals. I had no classes in something called cultural competency when I was at the University of Utah, where diversity means you found a Presbyterian. Being Latina, my history wasn't reflected in the Utah history books either. We don't We don't even know how we got Texas and Utah and Arizona. It's a fascinating story. It's a wonderful story. It's a story of courage, but it has different heroes and different controversies than you see. So we absolutely agree with you that we want cultural competency, that shouldn't just be reflected in a history book. It should be reflected in the learning community of that school. It should be reflected in how you welcome the parents and the families into that school. And if you don't have if you don't belong to that community, it doesn't mean that as a professional, I can't learn about how to welcome diverse families into a school. It is our responsibility as professionals. And it is something that I think you can put in a platform about having accurate historical and cultural information as part and as the expectation of a school learning community.
Dr. West.
Yes, thank you for your testimony. And education is so crucial. I think of my mother, Irene B. West, who was a teacher and principal. She has an elementary school named after her. So that education, especially when I was Congressman Cummings saying the same thing about how central it is, but it just strikes me the contrast between our rhetoric and the realities when you look at schools, public education these days. You know, Diane Rabbit says rich kids get taught, poor kids get tested. And there's a sense in which rich kids get educated, poor kids get disciplined. And so I think it's not simply a matter of the demeaning of teachers, but the children themselves oftentimes are not given the same kind of value and significance in our poor communities as well as chocolate communities. That has something to do with Congressman Lee's point about the fact that our schools are more racially segregated, more class segregated. How do you deal with this unbelievable gap? Because on the one hand, it's wonderful to hear about every child needs a quality education. We hear that year after year, education, election after election, and it gets worse and worse and worse under Democrats and Republicans. Again, Democrats are better, but that's not saying a lot because the Republicans set such a low bar. How do you deal with this gap?
Let me tell you the highest bar I think we could aspire to. We are living in the measurement age. I've had so many people say, well, if you can't measure it, it doesn't matter. I know all of the things that I taught as a sixth grade teacher. I was the teacher of the year for Utah. And some of the most important things I ever taught my students, you could not reduce to a bubble test. So I reject that, but I do believe you have to measure things. You have to measure the right things. So what I've been telling people, especially going back to this Every Student Succeeds Act, the opportunity we have, no guarantee, just an opportunity. I said, why not take a clipboard and walk into the best resourced school in your state? And we all know where they are. In my state, it's Park City High School, Park City Middle School, Park City Elementary School. If it says Park City on it, it's under a ski resort. And you got a lot of stuff there. You walk in and you say, look at that theater department, look at their chemistry lab, look at their foreign language clubs, look at the technology they have. Look at the low turnover rate with those teachers. Look at the support staff and the school nurse and the librarian. Look at the social workers and the psychologists and everybody. And you take an inventory of the programs and services in that school, and you say, that is our standard. We will accept no less for every blessed child in this state than these blessed children have. And you know what? I wouldn't take one thing away from them. I would not take one thing away. Those parents knew that's what my kid needs to have an advantage, to get them into Princeton. That's what I insist on for my kid, and they're right. So why not for every kid? And when someone says, well, we can't afford that, yes, you did. You afforded it. You just afforded it for these kids. And by the way, if these kids, if they don't have a music class, their parents can get them piano lessons. What's going to happen with the kids I taught at the shelter? They can't get into Little League. Their parents can't buy them a uniform. So our kids in the most vulnerable situations need more. Equity doesn't mean equal. Equity means you got what you needed. And we know what it looks like. It looks like Park City High School.
Thank you very much. You never taught in Utah, did you? Did you teach in Utah?
20 years.
Now, just one question. Jason Chaffetz, Congressman, we sit on this, we sit on the same committee. He's the
I'm
chairman,
sorry.
the ranking member. Now, listen to me now. He brags about how Utah, when we are asking for money for various districts throughout the country, trying to and help education nationally, he brags about the fact that Utah has one of the lowest per student spending
The
rates
lowest.
in the country and have great results. Can you talk about that for real quick?
I get upset with people who say, and look at our test scores, when they mean, they use test scores to measure everything. And I know that those test scores, I mean, I'm a teacher, I'm not afraid to give tests. We invented tests. I made out report cards. But I would never just say, one standardized test is all I need to know about this kid. And what they do is they can say, where can we move the needle on a standardized test, play some games, get the bubble kids, the kids on the cusp, to just jump a few points, and then we can claim that we're doing wonderful things for kids. Where are we on affordable college? Where are we on making sure that our most vulnerable kids have access and are ready to succeed in a higher education world? That's where their future is going to take off. And when you have cut programs the way we have cut programs in Utah, where you have cut sports programs, where a lot of our kids get their scholarships because they're academically talented, where they'll say, I'll do my math because I want to be on the team. The kinds of things that encourage them and give them hope and give them access, they've cut those programs. They've cut the arts. They've cut foreign languages. And so I worry about what graduation day means to those kids. We can do better, and he knows we can do better.
I'll tell him you said that.
Would you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.